Okay, next we are going to talk about my favorite tradition and the sphere that it champions. My favorite tradition is the Order of Hermes. This is the classic mage idea. The weird formula, the spell books, the odd incantations, the esoteric languages and knowledge, that idea of a wizard in a tower is the Order of Hermes. Comes from Hermes Trismegistus. Those of you that have done any digging into New Age thought and some ancient thought knows what Hermes Trismegistus stands for. They champion the sphere of forces. This is the energetic forces of the world. Air and fire out of the classic elements. Nuclear power, electric power, fire, heat, magnetism, sound. These are all forces. And that's what this sphere champions, for lack of a better term. They hold it as the premier sphere they hold on to. And the Order of Hermes is one of the best at it. Now, the Order of Hermes is just an umbrella organization. There are houses within that hermetic order. Now, a lot of this grows out of also some of the mythology that came about in Ars Magica. But this is meant to be a little bit different. This is how magic works now. And the Order of Hermes, if there's a front man for the traditions, it's the Order of Hermes. They are also usually the de facto leaders. I don't want to say they're the leaders of the whole traditions. They're really not. But chances are, when you come into an area, if there's an active member of the Order of Hermes, if they're not leading the local chantry, they're working their way towards it. They have a tendency to be rather egotistical at times. That's what happens when you start meddling in the literal primal forces of creation. When at the higher levels you can counteract gravity momentarily. When even at lower levels you can cause a person's lighter to explode in their hand. When you can contain the blast from an incendiary grenade. You tend to get a bit of an ego. And that's the downfall. Again, we're talking about hubris. We're talking about pride. This is always the thing that comes about that brings about paradox in the game. It's always, always, always about being overly proud. And the Order of Hermes, while being very powerful, suffer from it greatly. Now, that's not to say that the Order of Hermes ignores the other spheres. They actually see all spheres as the way towards power. If there is one sphere they like to latch onto, past forces, it is prime, because that is the prime force of magic. Quintessence. The manipulation of potentiality. I like the Order of Hermes because I like that idea of the nerd wizard, even if they don't look like a nerd. He may be a very smooth moving operator in a very nice suit, but when it comes down to it, he'll use that ring on his finger that looks like a bejeweled signet ring as a focus, and all of a sudden you'll find the fillings in your teeth heating up over 200 degrees Kelvin. The Order of Hermes can be a lot of fun to play, but there's one other thing they suffer from in the modern era, and that is they are a serious anachronism. They are something that literally consensual reality says is nothing but fodder for fairy tales. The Wizard in the Tower. Merlin. Even though Merlin technically wasn't really Order of Hermes, that idea, that court wizard, a court alchemist. Now we'll get into alchemy a little bit more when we get to Sons of Ether Matter. But that's the reputation that they have. And as much as the Order of Hermes tends to be the controller, the one that wants to run everything, they're also quite often the first ones on the lines against the technocracy. They're quite often the first ones that have no problem getting into a spell brawl, taking down hit marks, taking down constructs, taking down anything from the technocracy they think they can do. So they have deserved reputations for both their tenacity and passion and their evil. So it's a fine dance you play when you play an Order of Hermes. So in these waning days, when reality seems to be calcifying, will you become a champion of the primal forces? Will you be the one to bring fire to the clay goblet and make it shatter, freeing the contents for the rest of the world to have, not just those few that feel they deserve to control it? Or in the end, will you be just as bad?